Good day mga kapadyak, kapatid at mga darling. In this video, pag-usapan natin ang isa sa mga well-visited site sa Iloilo City, which is the Fort San Pedro. By the way, I'm Kuya Rick, ang content creator ng Kuya Rick's TV, and welcome to my channel. Ay yeah! I was born in Iloilo City at dito na rin ako lumaki. Sa pagkakakilala ko noon, ang Fort San Pedro is just a place to hang out, for refreshment, having a drink, at kinikilala na masarap sa inasal at native chicken dishes. Kinikilala din ito bilang isa sa mga tambayan na mga gustong mag-relax, mag-fishing, mag-enjoy ng view sa dagat at sa mga gustong manood ng magandang sunset. Overlooking the Fort San Pedro from Iloilo Strait ay ang isla ng Guimaras na kaagad mapansin mo ang malaking cross sa ibabaw ng Balaan Bukid, meaning banal na bundok or holy mountain. Don't be mistaken kasi sa Ilonggo dialect, bukid means mountain, unlike in Tagalog which means farm. Balaan Bukid is one of the pilgrimage site ng mga Catholic devotees, especially during Holy Week. In my early 20s, I started to venture to other places outside Iloilo, such as Metro Manila and other places in the Philippines. Since newly graduate ako ng Bachelor of Science in Architecture ng panahon na yon, at may subject din na History of Architecture, I happened to visit the walled city of Intramuros and also the Fort San Pedro, kung saan kinulong si dating Jose Rizal before he was executed in Bagumbayan, which is now the Luneta Park. Isang malaking katanungan ang pumasok sa isip ko. Bakit ang Fort San Pedro in Iloilo City na kinikilalang dating fortress ay hindi kasing tulad ng fortress sa Maynila, tulad ng Fort Santiago and the walled city of Intramuros? At hindi rin tulad ng Fort San Pedro sa Cebu City, in which totally intact pa as of this day. Niwan laban na ako nakitang simbolo na dati siyang fortress. Unlike sa napakaraming simbahan all over Iloilo and throughout the Philippines. Question: bakit nawala ang Fort San Pedro? Ano kaya ang nangyari sa Fort San Pedro? Bakit nawala to? Ano kaya ang nangyari? This question has remained unanswered for so many years kasi hindi naman ako mahilig mag-research noong araw, until I started to work abroad and visited some places during my spare time. I am always fascinating to see old buildings, churches, ruins, castles, and old fortresses. One of my favorite here in Qatar is the old Subara Fort, which is well preserved. I also happen to see some of the old fortresses in Georgia and Armenia, and one of which is the Amber Fortress, which is also called as the Fortress in the Sky, since it is located at 2,300 meters above sea level. And since I'm a licensed registered architect in the Philippines and also in Qatar, nagtuturo din ako sa subject na History of Architecture sa Special Professional Licensure Examination Review classes dito sa Qatar. At nag-start na rin ako magkaroon ng personal blog for more than a year. And all data required can be found in the internet, so I decided to make a blog regarding Fort San Pedro, Iloilo, the Lost Fortress of Iloilo. Before anything else, special thanks muna sa FB page ni Nirio Kahilig Luhan at sa Old Iloilo FB page dahil sa mga posting nila related sa history ay marami akong natutunan regarding the history of Fort San Pedro, Iloilo. Question: tunay nga ba talaga na dating bastion fortress ang Fort San Pedro, Iloilo? Nag-umpisa ako mag-research sa mga old maps ng Pilipinas at sa mga old maps ng Iloilo. Then, I realized na sa hugis pa lang ng layout plan, Fort San Pedro, Iloilo is really a fortress. Paano ko nasabi? Castles and bastion forts are one of the topics being discussed in the subject History of Architecture. Typically, ang isang bastion fortress ay isang fortification na parang ganito ang formation. Upon the discovery of gunpowder, nagdevelop ang mga military architects and engineers as a form of defensive walls against cannon fires. Titulad ng mga castles noong araw, which are made of high walls, bastion fort are designed to withstand cannonball fires. Dahil naka-angled ang mga walls nito, hindi siya madaling ma-penetrate ng mga cannonball fires. Dagdag pa, naka-angle din ang elevation nito, which could make also a thicker wall kumpara sa straight walls ng mga castles. Ang mga walls ng isang bastion fort are double walls filled up with clays para lalong malakas ang resistance at makapag-absorb ng impact. Kaya, paano nga ba nag-umpisa ang Fort San Pedro? Ang Fort San Pedro o tinatawag din noong Puerta de las Nuestra Señora del Rosario sa Ingles, Fort of Our Lady of Rosary. Ito ay unang pinagawa made of timber noong 1602 by the order of the 11th Governor General of the Philippines, Pedro Bravo de Acuña. It was built to provide a strong defense against Moro and Dutch attacks. In September 1616, it was renovated into a stone fort by Diego de las Quinones following the Dutch attack of Iloilo. Dito niya natagpuan ang imahen ng Nuestra Señora del Rosario. Ang imahen na ito ay makikita pa rin natin ngayon na nakalagay sa simbahan ng San Jose Parish Church in Iloilo City. Aside from being a military outpost, the Spanish government used a part of it as a prison for Moro pirates. In 1738, it was again reinforced, fitted with 30 feet thick stone walls and 50 cannons. When the Philippine and American War erupted, it was taken over by the Americans during the invasion of Iloilo. On October 10, 1903, President Theodore Roosevelt declared Fort San Pedro and its adjoining areas in Iloilo City as a military reservation covering 34.5 hectares. It became the base of various U.S. military units of the Department of the Visayas under Brigadier General Robert P. Hodges. Kaya pala ang kalsada kung saan ang location ng Fort San Pedro ay nakapangalan as General Hodges Street. It continued to serve as a prison until 1911 when the Iloilo Provincial Jail was opened. At dahil may mga bakanting spaces dito, ginamit na din ito bilang opisina ng Bureau of Lands, Bureau of Forestry, District Engineer, and Provincial Treasurer Office ng Iloilo. Merong airstrip sa area na to, which witnessed the 1932 inaugural flight of the Iloilo Negros Air Express Company, Asia's first Filipino-owned commercial airline, and where its hangar was built. Iloilo Negros Air Express Company is now known as the Philippine Airlines. The first maiden flight from Iloilo to Manila was on February 1, 1933. In 1936, President Manuel L. Quezon designated the entire Fort San Pedro Military Reservation as the Philippine Army Post. Under Proclamation Number 111, Quezon ordered all offices in the reservation to vacate so it can be solely used for military instruction and training under the National Defense Act of 1935. When World War II erupted, the Japanese Imperial Army first bombed the hangar of the Iloilo Negros Air Express Company, then seized control of the Fort San Pedro, which turned it into the headquarters of the Japanese Imperial Army. In 1945, during the liberation of the Philippines and Panay Islands, with intense heavy bombing and heavy casualty, combined forces of the United States Navy and United States Air Force bombed all Japanese installations in Iloilo and pulverized the Fort San Pedro into ruins. In 1948, the remaining ruins of Fort San Pedro was bulldozed and was totally demolished. Following the signing of the transfer of certain military reservation in 1949, the U.S. government turned over 25 military reservation to the Philippine government, including Fort San Pedro. Kaya pala, halos wala ka nang makita na signs ng fortress sa Fort San Pedro kasi it was totally pulverized during the World War II. Siguro ng panahon na yon, hindi pa masyadong priority ang pag-reconstruct or pag-rebuild, kaya ang government did not make any effort to revive the Fort San Pedro. Wait a minute. Fort San Pedro to. Bakit walang rebulto ni San Pedro? Located at the two edge of Fort San Pedro ay ang imahe ng Our Lady of Rosary and the Sacred Heart of Jesus. Bakit tinawag na Fort San Pedro? Since wala akong makitang document that explain why it was named as Fort San Pedro, I assume that it was named after Pedro Bravo de Acuña, the 11th Governor General of the Philippines, at siguro devotees din siya ni San Pedro. Dahil magkapangalan sila, kaya na nila to tinawag na Fort San Pedro. As I've been reviewing some videos and photos of the fort, I noticed that the old foundation of the Fort San Pedro are still intact. Would it be structural stable? Well, ang sagot ay it has lasted for so many years and it has survived a severe punishment of bombing and bombardment of World War II. Those stones are the only constant reminder that once a fortress stood in this place, where brave soldiers stood their post for the purpose of protecting the people of Iloilo. Question: is there any effort to revive Fort San Pedro to its former glory, knowing that the fort was the very reason of the foundation of Iloilo, same as Zamboanga? There has been some movement to restore Fort San Pedro, to bring back to its former glory. The National Museum plans to do the best possible job to bring back the material genesis of this great Filipino city. Upon my research, I happened to see some various proposals from the National Museum and the City Planning Office. Other concepts are from the unknown source. It means that with the City Planning Office and National Museum on board, there will be really a big possibility that this port will be restored. Someday, Fort San Pedro will rise again. But when? After a series of proposals and planning to reconstruct and to restore the fort, would the people of the day will be able to experience its former glory? Will it be constructed in our lifetime? Only time will tell. So this is Fort San Pedro, the lost fortress of Iloilo.